Namaste, everyone. In today's podcast, I'm going to dive into the upcoming new moon in Citra Nakshatra in sidereal Libra, which happens to be one of the most auspicious new moons in the entire Vedic year and is known as Diwali or Festival of Light. And it's such a wonderful timing, you see, because every year when we experience Diwali, the great festival of light, when everyone is symbolically, lighting their little lamps, it's such a beautiful symbol, such a beautiful reminder that light, even the smallest light, can always defeat the darkness. Even if you light the tiniest light, it will still dispel the darkness. And this is such a beautiful message, especially in the context of the lunar month that we have just entered, that is known as Kartik month. Because during vast majority of this lunar month, we are actually inspired to every day offer our little diya, our oil lamp, even a candle, a little light to the Lord, to our most beloved aspect of the divine. And why is that so? You see, during Kartik month, or vast majority of it, and that is also true to Diwali or new moon in sidereal Libra, during that period, sun experiences debilitation. It stays for vast majority of that lunar month in the sign of its debilitation, sign of Libra, where you could say its light is at its lowest. It always happens already after autumn equinox, when on northern hemisphere our days are becoming shorter and shorter, the trees are shedding their leaves, and the light of the sun also symbolically withdraws. But where does it withdraw? It withdraws into our hearts, because sign of Libra actually represents our zodiacal heart chakra, since it's being ruled by Venus. So the light doesn't really disappear, it's always there. But during that particular lunar month, it withdraws, it goes within, so that we may also use the energy of that lunar month to purify our heart chakra, because the light of the sun purifies anything it touches. Purify our heart of all its desires and expectations and truly reconnect with something greater. Which is why traditionally it is known that Kartik month is one of the best lunar months to cultivate bhakti, cultivate devotion, and our loving relationship with the divine, whatever form it takes. So it's such a profound period, and of course this symbolic act of offering a lamp in the outside during every evening of Kartik month is just a reminder for us that even if things sometimes don't seem so bright in the outside, but this light of the divinity is always shining bright in our hearts. And by lighting this lamp, we are just reminding ourselves of this, that this light of the heart is always there. Now, at the very heart of this lunar month, known as Kartik, we have this interesting conjunction between moon and sun in sidereal Libra, known as Diwali, this great festival of light, which this year is going to happen on 21st of October, depending on your time zone. And it's such a special, really, new moon to think about, because actually both sun and moon, you could say, are at their lowest during Diwali. Why? Because sun is debilitated in sidereal Libra, while at the same time moon is being combusted and completely disappears into this purifying rays of the sun. So astrologically speaking, the light of the sun is almost at its lowest during this time of the year. And this might be one of the reasons why it's such a good time to remind ourselves of this light that is ever available within us. Especially as this conjunction between sun and moon is happening in Libra, the zodiacal heart chakra, this is usually such a powerful time to really look deep into our hearts, face any blockages that might be there in the form of our expectations, dissatisfaction, desires, etc., etc., and reconnect with that what truly matters, what is really important to us, rather than focusing on those petty things around. And this year in particular, there will be a little bit of complexity with around this particular new moon, because not only Sun and Moon are going to meet together in sidereal Libra, but also Mars and Mercury are going to be there. So effectively, we are going to have a stellium of planets in Libra during that new moon. And whenever we experience a stellium on the sky, especially when the Sun or the Moon or both of them are involved, there is always a little bit of complexity to that, because stellium of planets formed with one of the luminaries basically tries to inspire us to really look deep into ourselves and find all of those things which we maybe believed for all this time that they are true about us, and it turns out they are not. It's really the time that actually inspires us to look into all those lies that we have been telling themselves without even realizing that. It's time to look at all those little delusions that we might have been protecting so fiercely because we thought we needed them. So it's a very important time also to really reconnect with the light of our true self and allow a little more of that authenticity to truly shine through us. But as you can imagine, it never happens, in a very smooth way. There's always a little bit of process that comes along with that, very transformational and not always pleasant. Remember, after all, neither sun, neither moon feel really great during that new moon. And yet, the outcome of that conjunction can be so powerful. The outcome can be us realigning with our authentic self, with the voice of our heart, with that we kind of always intuitively known, but perhaps never really paid enough attention to. And there's a lot of potential in that. Another thing worth noticing is that the dispositor of this entire stellium and the dispositor of that new moon, Venus, is going to experience debilitation during that new moon. In fact, Venus will remain in the state of debilitation in sidereal Virgo for vast majority of this Kartik month. And in a way, there's a lot of potential in that too, but there is a certain struggle as well, because Kartik month inspires us to focus more on things that are transcended and timeless and limitless, like our relationship with the divine. While Venus, in Virgo at the same time might be denying us some of our desires and expectations, which may result in profound sense of dissatisfaction. And again, dissatisfaction is not always a purely, negative thing. It actually can push us farther on spiritual paths sometimes. Dissatisfaction also helps us sometimes to understand better what really matters to us. So there is a value to it. But the problematics with Venus being in Virgo and the new moon occurring in sidereal Libra, which is the Mula Trikona of Venus, is that we may end up projecting a lot of our dissatisfaction on other people, and very often these are our life partners, the people who are simply closest to us, right? So especially with a sort of combination like this in the sky, we need to be very careful to not project too much of our dissatisfaction on those people around us, even though it sometimes feels like the easiest and the most obvious things to do, but to really rather try to go within. Because whenever planets become debilitated in the sky, it's always a time for us to actually go more within rather than in the outside. One thing that is very positive though, and very beautiful about this new moon in Citra Nakshatra, you see, new moon in sidereal Libra, known as Diwali as well, is also often considered to be a symbolic new year. symbolic new beginnings, when we make peace with people with whom we had conflict perhaps, when we try to really settle all the arguments and then with clean slate move forward. And this is also what symbolic lighting of the lamp is, burning away all the negativities and allowing something new to shine. And it's quite beautiful because this year, shortly before that new moon happens, Jupiter will also move temporarily to sidereal Cancer, where Jupiter will experience its exaltation. And in such a beautiful nakshatra, right? Punarvasu, which literally means the return of light, the return of hope. The nakshatra that is so associated with the idea of Sri Ram, returning back to Ayodhya. Sri Ram, the light, the divinity, returning back home, back to our hearts, which is also what symbolically Diwali is about. So it's quite beautiful, that shortly before that new moon takes place, Jupiter will simultaneously become exalted and will remain like that also all the way until, I think, somewhere 5th of December. So it's quite a bit of time that we'll have, that we will suddenly feel more uplifted, more hopeful. There might be resolution of some problems, resolution of some expectations. We will have, just more hope and more positive energy to move forward, which is a true blessing as well to experience. So although there is a lot of complexity and lots of transformations that this upcoming new moon is bringing into our lives, that Jupiter also, becoming exalted, is at the same time reassuring us that we will receive support in whatever we are experiencing. We will receive wisdom, we'll receive guidance, we will have realizations and resolutions as well. So there's a lot of goodness about this. So what I just wish you, for this upcoming new moon is that you find your own way, your own pathway back to light, back to hope, and that you find a way to cultivate it in everyday life. Because honestly, this entire Kartik month, especially Diwali, are just about that. They're just the reminders that there might be some temporary struggle, temporary challenge or darkness. But if we take just a little bit of effort to light a single lamp, a single candle, that might be sometimes just enough to initiate, the entire process of dispelling the darkness. And that's really what this month is trying to remind us of. So remember in this month to find your own ways back to connection with the divine, back to light, back to hope. It's a beautiful month to intensify our spiritual practices. Numerous scriptures are saying that any spiritual practice, no matter how simple, how small, even as simple as Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, as offering a leaf, a flower, a drop of water, but doing it with love. If you can do that in this month with true feeling, with true love, with true devotion, that brings so many more results than in any other month during that Vedic year. So it's a truly auspicious month, even though it's not always the easiest one. But the very purpose of this lunar month is to bring a true and lasting transformation into our hearts. And I wish you all that it bears the good fruits. Namaste.